Two childhood friends grew up on opposite sides of the law, but fate has a way of forcing them together. When love and betrayal collide in the streets of Brooklyn, who will survive, and who will break first? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to uncover every twist in this dramatic BL story. Ridgeway Avenue never slept. Even at midnight, it breathed, the hum of cars rolling past, the echo of sneakers slapping the pavement, the faraway laughter that never sounded happy. Streetlights flickered like tired eyes, casting long shadows over cracked sidewalks. Somewhere, a baby cried. Somewhere else, gunshots cracked the night like fireworks no one asked for. Tariq Coleman and Damian Reyes knew every inch of that street. Every broken fence, every shortcut through the alleys, every store owner who'd shoo them away with a broom and still leave a candy bar on the counter. Ridgeway wasn't home because it was kind, it was home because it was all they had. They were 12 when they first started calling themselves brothers. Tariq was the quiet one, thin, sharp-eyed, with skin the color of warm bronze and a stare that carried more thought than most adults managed in a lifetime. He loved books. Any kind. He'd read graffiti like poetry and torn newspapers like they were scripture. His mother worked double shifts at the hospital and still made him read aloud every night before bed. Damian, on the other hand, was everything Tariq wasn't: loud, daring, and impossible to ignore. His laughter carried across the block like music, and his anger hit just as hard. He lived with his uncle, a mechanic with more bottles than tools, and spent his free time on the basketball court where he was king. Together they were balance, one fire, one calm. That night, the summer air was thick with heat and sirens. The two boys sat on the roof of an abandoned building, watching the city lights shimmer across the skyline. Tariq hugged his knees, a half-eaten bag of chips between them. Damian lay flat on his back, hands behind his head, eyes fixed on the stars struggling to outshine the city glow. "You ever think about leaving this place?" Tariq asked quietly. Damian snorted. "And go where? The moon?" "I'm serious." Tariq turned toward him. "Somewhere else. Where people don't fight over corners that don't belong to them." Damian's grin faded a little. "Ridgeway's home, man. You just gotta learn how to own it before it owns you." Tariq frowned. "You sound like your uncle." "Yeah, well, he's still here, ain't he?" Damian said, sitting up. "I'm not scared of this place. I'll run it one day." Tariq smiled sadly. "You'll die trying." The words hung in the air, heavy, too true. Damian's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just looked away at the horizon where Brooklyn met the sky, glowing orange under the city haze. Then, as if trying to shake off the mood, Damian reached over and shoved Tariq's shoulder. "You're too serious, bookworm." "I'm just realistic." "Realistic gets you nowhere." Damian grinned again, playful. "You dream too small. And you dream too dangerous." They both laughed, the sound cutting through the noise of distant sirens. For a moment, it felt like they were untouchable, two kids on a rooftop watching the city breathe beneath them. The next few years rolled by fast. Summers of basketball tournaments, winters of hustling sneakers, and 1,000 moments that belonged only to them. Tariq became the one teachers whispered about, the kid who might actually make it out. Damian became the one everyone followed, the heartbeat of Ridgeway's chaos, the boy who turned fights into legend. But for all their differences, they always found their way back to each other. On Tariq's 14th birthday, Damian stole a pair of headphones from a pawn shop and gifted them with a proud grin. "Now you can listen to your nerd books in style," he'd said. Tariq laughed and shoved him. "You're an idiot." "You're idiot," Damian said, half joking, half true. And maybe that was the start of something neither of them had words for yet, something buried under loyalty and laughter and the unspoken knowledge that nobody else in the world got them quite the same way. The night everything changed started like any other. Music thumping through the block, the smell of fried chicken drifting from corner stores, and laughter echoing under the streetlights. Tariq's mother had finally come home early. She made jollof rice and told Tariq to invite Damian. The three of them ate at the small kitchen table, the air warm with comfort and spice. For once, Ridgeway felt safe. Then came the sound, a car screeching to a stop outside, followed by gunfire. Tariq didn't even have time to duck before the windows shattered. Damian yanked him down behind the table, glass raining around them. Tariq's mother screamed. Seconds later, the world went still. When Tariq lifted his head, his mother was on the floor, eyes open, a dark bloom spreading across her chest. "Tariq?" Damian's voice cracked, pulling him back, dragging him out of the apartment as neighbors screamed and sirens wailed. They ran until their lungs burned, until the city lights blurred into streaks of red and blue. They ended up on their rooftop again, breathless and shaking. Tariq's face was blank, too calm. Damian was crying and trying to hide it. "She's gone," Tariq whispered. "She's gone, D." Damian pressed his hand against the back of Tariq's neck, pulling him close. "No. We'll find who did it. I swear." Tariq shook his head. "They'll never stop. This place, it kills everything good." For a long moment they just sat there, the city roaring beneath them. Tariq leaned against Damian's shoulder, silent tears finally breaking through. When the social workers came a week later, Tariq didn't say goodbye. He just looked at Damian through the open car window, the world between them already shifting. Damian ran beside the car as it rolled away, yelling his name until his voice broke. That was the last time they saw each other. 10 years later, Ridgeway had changed, but only on the surface. The old corner store was now a vape shop. The basketball court where Damian used to rule was fenced off with rusted wire. The graffiti on the walls had faded, but the stories behind them hadn't. Damian Reyes was no longer the kid from Ridgeway. He was Shadow now, a name that carried weight. He moved like smoke through the boroughs, untouchable, unpredictable, his gang, the Crimson Sons, ruling the docks and corners with fear and loyalty. His name meant power. It also meant danger. Tariq Coleman came back that same summer. He'd grown taller, harder, his once boyish eyes now shadowed by experience. A detective's badge sat heavy in his pocket. But as his cab turned down Ridgeway Avenue, the past hit him like a punch. The buildings looked smaller, but the ghosts felt bigger. He saw the old rooftop from the window, the same place they'd once promised the world. And for the first time in 10 years he wondered if Damian ever went back there. He didn't know yet that fate was leading him straight into the shadow of the boy he once called brother. That night, in a half-lit bar on the edge of Ridgeway, Damian sat alone in the back booth, smoke curling around him. The light caught the sharp cut of his jaw, the scar running down his temple, the only souvenir from a fight that nearly killed him years ago. His eyes were the same though, fierce, dark, unreadable. People said Shadow didn't feel anymore, that he buried his past somewhere deep beneath the city. But when he looked out the window and saw a familiar figure crossing the street, tall in a worn leather jacket, his gaze steady, something in Damian's chest shifted. He didn't know yet that the man was Tariq. Didn't know that the streets, after all these years, had decided not to forget. Brooklyn's nights still breathed smoke and danger, but Tariq wasn't the same boy who'd once run from gunfire. The Ridgeway precinct had assigned him to the city's biggest problem, the Crimson Sons, the gang that ruled the borough like kings. And at the top of that empire stood one name, Shadow. No photo. No record. Just whispers. A ghost in the system, a man who ran the city without ever being seen. Tariq didn't believe in legends, until the night he walked into that bar on Kingston Avenue. He was deep undercover now, wearing a fake name, Malik Carter, and carrying a story about stolen goods and loyalty for sale. The bar was dim, loud with laughter that sounded too sharp, too rehearsed. Men with tattoos leaned against the counter, sizing him up. He ignored them. Kept his posture calm, confident. The bartender, a thick man with faded ink crawling up his neck, slid him a drink. "You new around here?" "Just passing through," Tariq said smoothly. "Looking for work. Heard the Crimson Sons might need hands." That got the room's attention. The air shifted. Laughter quieted. A man by the door murmured something into his phone. Tariq's pulse ticked faster, but his face stayed unreadable. Minutes later, the door at the back of the bar opened. And everything in Tariq stopped. The man who stepped out was older, harder, wrapped in black from head to boots. His walk was quiet, controlled, the kind that made space open for him. A silver chain glinted at his throat, and a scar curved along his temple like a mark of authority. Damian. Or rather, Shadow. Tariq felt his breath catch, his chest tighten. 10 years gone, and yet in that moment, every memory flooded back. The rooftop, the laughter, the blood. Damian's eyes swept the room, dark and dangerous. When they landed on Tariq, something flickered, recognition maybe, or instinct. He moved closer, each step deliberate. "So you're the one asking for work," Damian said, voice low, smooth. Tariq swallowed hard. "That depends who's asking." "I am." The silence between them crackled. Tariq forced himself to hold Damian's gaze. It was like looking into fire, familiar, deadly, beautiful. "I heard you're the man to see," Tariq said. Damian studied him. The set of his jaw, the calm in his stance, the eyes that looked too sharp for a stranger. Something in his chest twisted, but he pushed it down. "What's your name?" "Malik." "Malik?" Damian repeated, tasting the lie. "And what makes you think you're cut out for this?" Tariq smirked faintly. Because I don't scare easy. A low laugh slipped from Damian's lips. Is that right? He turned to one of his men. Take him out back. Let's see if he bleeds. Two goons grabbed Tariq by the arms. He didn't resist, not yet. They pushed him into the alley, the cold air biting his face. One swung a fist. Tariq blocked it clean, ducked, drove his elbow into the man's ribs, then swept the other off his feet. By the time Damian stepped outside, both men were groaning on the pavement. Tariq straightened, chest heaving slightly. Still think I scare easy? He asked. For a second Damian just stared. Then a smile, slow, dangerous, almost proud, curved his lips. Not bad, he said. Maybe you've got a place here after all. He stepped closer. Too close. Tariq could smell the faint mix of gunpowder and smoke on him. His heartbeat thundered, but his face stayed steady. Welcome to Ridgeway, Malik, Damian said softly. Don't make me regret it. The following days blurred in motion. Tariq embedded himself deeper, earning trust, observing every move, every deal. He reported back to his handler through coded messages, careful not to let emotion cloud his mission. But each time Damian entered a room, that discipline cracked. The air changed when he was near, sharp, electric. He wasn't the wild kid anymore. He was a man carved by pain and power, one who could command a room with a look. And yet, sometimes Tariq would catch a glimpse, the faintest shadow of the boy he'd once known. The way Damian's hand lingered on old records, the way his gaze drifted toward the skyline when he thought no one was watching. One night, Tariq followed him up to the rooftop of their headquarters, an old apartment block overlooking the street. Damian stood there alone, cigarette between his fingers, smoke curling like ghosts into the night. You following me, Malik? He said without turning. Tariq froze. Just needed air. Damian exhaled slowly, watching the smoke fade. You talk like someone who's been here before. Ridgeway's not kind to outsiders. Tariq stepped closer. I grew up somewhere like this. Damian finally turned. The city lights painted his face in gold and shadow. What happened to it? It forgot me, Tariq said quietly. Something in Damian's eyes shifted. Recognition again, faint but real. He looked at Tariq like he was a ghost of a memory he couldn't place. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the city filled the silence between them. Then Damian said, almost to himself, You remind me of someone I used to know. Tariq's throat tightened. Yeah. Damian's voice dropped lower. He was the only good thing this place ever gave me. Tariq's breath caught, but he forced a smile. What happened to him? Damian looked back at the skyline, eyes distant. He left. The streets forgot him. I didn't. The words hit like a punch, quiet, devastating. Tariq looked away, fighting to keep his voice steady. Maybe he didn't forget you either. Damian turned to him again, suspicion flickering beneath curiosity. Careful, Malik. You talk like you know me. Tariq's lips curved faintly. Maybe I do. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to still. The distance between them shrank, not in steps but in memory. The same rooftop. The same skyline. Only the years had changed. Damian broke eye contact first, crushing the cigarette under his boot. Get some rest. Tomorrow's a big day. As he walked away, Tariq stood frozen, the night pressing heavy around him. He'd come to Brooklyn to finish a mission, but the mission was no longer simple. Because the man he was sent to destroy was the same one he'd once sworn to protect. And whether as brothers or enemies, their story had just begun again. The night Ridgeway burned smelled like gasoline and betrayal. Tariq had seen many operations go bad, but this one reeked of setup. A deal that was supposed to be routine, simple exchange at the docks, had spiraled into chaos the moment headlights appeared where there shouldn't have been any. Bullets cut through the dark. Men shouted. Tires screeched. Tariq dove behind a rusted container, gun drawn, heart hammering. Across the dock, Damian barked orders, calm even in gunfire, his voice cutting through panic like steel. Fall back. Everyone move. A figure lunged at Damian with a knife. Without thinking, Tariq sprang from cover, caught the man's wrist, and drove his elbow into his ribs. The attacker fell hard. Damian spun, and for the first time in years, their eyes met under the strobe of muzzle flashes. Recognition flared. For a second, the world went silent, only the two of them standing in the chaos, breathing the same smoke-filled air. Then Damian grabbed Tariq by the arm. This way. They ran, through the maze of containers into the night, gunfire echoing behind them. Tariq's lungs burned, but he didn't slow. They burst into an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the pier, slamming the door shut behind them. Darkness swallowed them whole. Damian leaned against the wall, blood streaking his sleeve. Tariq's hand trembled as he reached for his shoulder. "You're hit." "It's nothing," Damian said, wincing anyway. "You?" "I'm fine." For a long moment neither spoke. Just the sound of rain starting to fall outside, tapping against the roof like the heartbeat of the city. Then Damian's voice cut through the quiet. "You saved my life. Guess that makes us even." Damian turned his head, studying him. The flickering light from the street lamps filtered through the cracks, painting half his face in gold and the other half in shadow. His expression was unreadable. "Who are you really, Malik?" he asked quietly. Tariq's pulse jumped. "What do you mean?" "I've been around too long to miss what's right in front of me." Damian stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "You move like someone trained. You think before you breathe. You don't belong here." Tariq held his ground. "Maybe I just pay attention." "No," Damian said softly, eyes narrowing. "You remind me of someone. Someone I lost a long time ago." The words cracked something open. Tariq's throat tightened, but he forced himself to look steady. "Who?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Damian's jaw tensed. "A boy who left Ridgeway before it could finish him. He was everything good this place didn't deserve." Tariq's chest ached. "And what if he came back?" Damian looked away, a bitter smile ghosting his lips. "Then I'd tell him he's a fool." Silence stretched between them, fragile, heavy. Rain poured harder, thunder rumbling low. Tariq took a step forward. Maybe he had a reason. Damian's gaze snapped back to him, sharp, searching. "Then tell me why it feels like I'm looking right at him." Tariq's mask cracked. The words he'd held for 10 years trembled on his tongue. "Because you are." The confession hung in the air, impossible to take back. Damian froze, disbelief flickering across his face. He stared like he was trying to piece together a ghost made real. "Tariq?" His voice broke around the name. "No. You can't." "I never meant to lie," Tariq said, stepping closer. "But I had to find you. To see what you'd become." Damian's laugh was harsh, bitter. "You became a cop? It wasn't supposed to be this way." "Yeah." Damian's eyes glinted. "Then what was it supposed to be? You lock me up, save Ridgeway from its monster?" Tariq shook his head, voice raw. "I wanted to save you." The words hit harder than any bullet. Damian turned away, breathing unsteady. "You don't save people like me, Tariq. You survive them." Tariq moved closer, his voice trembling. "You don't have to keep being this. You could still walk away." Damian laughed again, softer this time, almost broken. "Walk away to what? The streets don't let go. You should know that better than anyone." Rain spilled through a broken window, dripping between them. The silence that followed was thick with everything unsaid, 10 years of grief, guilt, and the kind of love that had nowhere left to go. Damian finally met his gaze again, eyes darker than the storm outside. "You should have stayed gone." Tariq's voice shook. "I couldn't." He took one more step, close enough to see the tremor in Damian's jaw, the scar that hadn't been there before. His hand rose, hesitated, then brushed Damian's arm just above the wound. Damian didn't pull away. His breath hitched, quiet, almost vulnerable. "You shouldn't touch me," he said, voice barely holding steady. "Tell me to stop," Tariq whispered. But Damian didn't. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between them. The sound of rain, the warmth of skin, the weight of memories pressing down. Damian's hand lifted, fingers curling around the back of Tariq's neck. "You shouldn't have come back," he murmured. "I had to." And in the next breath, the distance vanished, not with desperation, but with the ache of two lives that had never truly let go. It wasn't soft and it wasn't simple. It was years of pain, anger, and love colliding all at once. When they finally broke apart, breathless and shaking, neither spoke. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far away. Inside, Tariq felt the world tilt, a line crossed that could never be undone. Damian stepped back first, his expression unreadable again. "You need to go before my men find you here." Tariq hesitated. "Damian?" "Go," he said sharply, then softer, almost pleading. "Before I remember what side you're on." Tariq's chest twisted. He wanted to reach out, to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. He turned and slipped into the rain, the city swallowing him whole. Damian stood alone in the dark, staring after him. The cigarette between his fingers burned low, forgotten. He whispered into the empty room, "You were always too good for this place." Outside, thunder rolled, and for the first time in years, Shadow felt the weight of his own name. Brooklyn woke up to the sound of sirens. By morning the news was everywhere, gang war imminent. Shadow's crew targets rival kingpin. To the city it was another headline. To Tariq it was a countdown. He hadn't slept since the night at the docks. Damian's face haunted him, the look in his eyes when he said you should have stayed gone. Now Ridgeway was about to drown in blood, and Tariq knew only one man could stop it. The man he still couldn't stop loving. That evening the air felt heavy, choked with smoke and dread. Rain slicked the streets, reflecting neon and broken dreams. Tariq parked his unmarked car 2 blocks from the old foundry, Damian's headquarters, and loaded his gun with shaking hands. Not to shoot. To end this. He tucked his badge inside his jacket and whispered to no one, "Don't make me choose again." Inside the foundry the atmosphere was a storm ready to break. Men loaded guns, checked ammo, shouted directions. Shadow stood in the middle of it all, black coat, head bowed, cigarette glowing faintly like a dying ember. His crew waited for the word. When Tariq slipped in through the side door no one noticed, until Damian's voice, low and sharp, cut through the noise. "Everyone out." The room froze. "But boss." I said out. Within seconds the warehouse emptied. The rain's rhythm echoed through the broken ceiling as Tariq and Damian stood alone again, ghosts in the ruins of their city. Damian didn't look surprised. "You shouldn't be here, cop." "I'm not here as that," Tariq said. "I'm here as someone who doesn't want to see you die tonight." Damian smiled faintly, sad, tired. "I already did 10 years ago." Tariq took a step closer. "You don't have to do this. Call it off. Walk away before it's too late." "Too late?" Damian scoffed. "You think there's still a version of me the world can forgive?" "There's still a version of us," Tariq said quietly. "If you let there be." Damian's jaw tightened. He turned away, staring out at the rain. "You never understood. This life, it's not a choice anymore. The streets remember who owns them." "Then let them forget," Tariq said. "Let them remember something better." Damian turned, eyes blazing with something between anger and pain. "Better doesn't survive here." Tariq's voice broke. "Then neither will I." For the first time Damian faltered. His hand dropped to his side. "Don't say that." "Then prove me wrong," Tariq said, stepping forward until they were inches apart. "Come with me. Right now. Leave this city behind. We can still." A gunshot cracked through the air. Damian flinched, not from pain but from instinct. Behind Tariq, a door burst open. One of Damian's men, twitchy, loyal, scared, stood there, finger trembling on the trigger. "Boss. He's a cop." Another shot. The sound echoed through the foundry, sharp and final. Tariq staggered, confusion clouding his face. He looked down, saw the spreading red across his chest. Damian's world shattered. He turned, grabbed the shooter by the throat, slammed him against the wall. The man gasped, begging, but Damian didn't hear. Didn't feel. He pressed the gun under the man's chin and whispered, voice low as thunder. "You just killed the only good thing left in this place." The shot was deafening. The man dropped. Damian spun back, dropping to his knees beside Tariq. His hands pressed against the wound, desperate, shaking. "Stay with me," he said. "Don't you dare leave me now." Tariq's breath came in shallow gasps. "You always were bad at listening." Damian's voice cracked. "You're not dying here. Not like this." Tariq smiled faintly, blood on his lips. "Guess I was wrong. The streets, they don't forget." "Stop talking." "Can't." Tariq's fingers brushed Damian's arm weakly. "I need you to do something. Anything. Promise me, you'll live. Leave this city. Don't become what it made you." Damian shook his head, eyes burning. "Don't make me promise that." "Promise me." The silence between them broke on a whisper. "I promise." Tariq's hand fell away, the light in his eyes dimming like the last flicker of dawn. For a long moment, there was only the sound of rain. Damian sat there, drenched in it, holding the man who'd come back to save him, and lost everything trying. His reflection in the puddle looked like a man carved from shadow and sorrow. He laid Tariq down gently, brushed a hand over his face and whispered, "You never stopped believing in ghosts." Then he stood. Outside, police sirens wailed, closing in. Damian didn't run. Didn't hide. He walked out of the warehouse with his gun lowered and his eyes fixed on the horizon, rain pouring down like penance. The cops shouted. Lights flashed red and blue across his face. Damian raised his hands slowly. "I'm done." The world roared around him, but for once he felt quiet inside. Days later the papers wrote about it like a tragedy of crime and justice. They didn't mention the part where a gangster carried a dying man into the rain and whispered an apology only the night could hear. They didn't mention how, for the first time in years, Ridgway slept without gunfire. But in a small apartment on the east side, a faded photograph still sat on a windowsill. Two boys, younger, brighter, the world still unbroken behind them. And beneath it, someone had scrawled in ink, "Until the streets forget us, I'll remember you."